Shalom, welcome to the Jewish Task Force, J.T.F. My name is Chaim Ben Pesach. We, of course, are going to speak about the war between Israel and Muslim Nazi terrorist Iran and what the real story is behind that war. You're going to hear things here that you don't hear anywhere else. But before we get to that, this program is dedicated to Refuah Shlema, complete recovery for Shlomo ben Sarah, Ruth bat Sarah, Dorit bat Sarah, Ruven ben Shoshana, Uri ben Zuriah, David ben Edna, and Ashedina bat Violet, and to Ilui Neshamot, elevating of the souls for Sharon Mitman, Malka bat Meir, Allegra bat Shlomo, Daniel Nankin, Victor Chazdai, Pesach Ze'eb ben Dov, Lunita Adler, Shifra Hoffman, Ruven Hoffman, Barry Hoffman, Harab Mir Kahana, Harab Binyamin Kahana, Tzipora Fegi bat Liba, Yosef ben Meir, Robert Mittman, Dennis Shore, Helen Friedman, Charles Zolat, Yair Levine, and Rachel D. Well, those of you who have followed our programs over the years, including the program we did on cable television in the 1990s, which, as you know, had a very big audience, know that we have spoken about the issue of the nuclear threat from Muslim terrorist Iran for many years. At least for 25 years, we've been warning that Israel must destroy Iran's nuclear bomb-making program. This is something we've spoken about thousands of times. And if Israel had done what we were urging Israel to do 25 years ago, it would have been a very simple operation. In 1 or 2 hours, the Israeli Air Force could have destroyed the entire program at that time, because it was just a simple program that was above ground, and Israel could have decimated the program immediately. And then if they tried to build again, Israel could have gone back a couple of years later and keep doing that so that the Iranians would finally realize that they're spending billions of dollars on a program that's just going to be destroyed over and over again by the Israeli Air Force. That was what Israel should have done, and that would have taken care of this problem a long time ago. None of the politicians in Israel were urging that Israel do this, except for one, Moshe Feiglin from the Zehut Party, and of course we support Moshe Feiglin and the Zehut Party in Israel. He's the only political leader that urged Israel to do this all along. Now, we have a situation where Bibi Netanyahu waited until the last minute, until Iran was literally on the verge of building nuclear bombs here. And now it might be too late to completely destroy the nuclear program. Israel might not, I don't know if Israel militarily can even do it now. It could be that it's too late, God forbid, to do it. Now you're going to hear some things, those of you who love Israel, the Jews and the righteous Gentiles who watch this program who love Israel, you're going to hear some things that are going to sound worrisome here. And there are some very serious dangers here, no doubt about it. But I want you to know that this is not a program of doom and gloom, because in the end, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God, will protect Israel, and Israel will be saved in the end by God. But there could be a lot of suffering and death and destruction in the interim until Israel is redeemed and saved from all of this, and until Israel's enemies are destroyed. But in the end, we're going to win. Israel will win in the end. I'm not talking about this particular war. I'm not talking about in the next week or the next month. I'm talking about in the long run, in the long range. Israel is certain to emerge victorious and triumphant. And everything that was told to us in the Bible thousands of years ago by the Hebrew prophets will come true. It will all be fulfilled. We already see the fulfillment of so much of it with the Jews returning to their historic homeland against all odds, impossible odds. Thousands of years after being expelled, returning to their homeland and defeating their enemies when they're outnumbered 100 to 1. A hopeless situation, completely hopeless, and it's all coming true in our time because God promised that this would happen. And when God makes promises, God is not a politician. He keeps his word. So we just want you to know, because you're going to hear some frightening things here if you love Israel, that in the end, Israel will win. But we want to avoid the unnecessary suffering and death and destruction that could come in the interim. Netanyahu waited until the last minute. He waited until the Iranians built a nuclear fortress a half a mile under a huge mountain that that the Israeli Air Force cannot penetrate in Fordo. And so it's a real problem right now getting rid of the entire nuclear program. Israel has done some important things in this war so far. They've killed Iran's leading nuclear scientists, about 9 or 10 of Iran's nuclear scientists. In other words, the whatever brain power they had behind this program, Israel has eliminated them in this war. Israel, just miraculous, brilliant strikes. The Israelis killed their main scientists, have killed their generals and their leading military people. Israel's wiping out their leadership in this war. And Israel has destroyed their above ground nuclear facilities, some important strikes that were very important in Natanz, for instance. They have an enrichment facility to enrich uranium, which you have to do to build nuclear bombs. Israel took that out. Israel's destroyed a lot of things that are essential to the nuclear program and has set them back a while. But they still have intact enough centrifuges. And by the way, they lost about 15,000 of their centrifuges in Natanz because of even though they were buried underground, even though they were underground. But when Israel took out the electricity that keeps the centrifuges going, when Israel destroyed the electricity, the centrifuges were very severely damaged, if not destroyed. So 15,000 of them have been taken out. But they have many more in Fordo, buried deep underground in that mountain, where we're under solid rock, a half a mile of solid rock. They have their nuclear facility there. So it's a situation where it could be that it's too late. God forbid. I hope not. I hope Israel has some surprises up their sleeve, because they've been. When the Jews decide that they're going to fight back, they're the best warriors in the world, because they're brilliant. Because God gave the Jews are Am Nivchar, they're God's chosen people, and God gave the Jews this incredible talent because He wants to show the nations of the world that the God of Israel is the God of the world, and the God of Israel, meaning the God of the Bible, this is the God of the world, and there is a God and there is a Creator. This is not something where we can do whatever we want and recklessly live disgusting lives and selfish lives. No, there is a Creator and there are rules. And God wants to show all the nations of the world that this is true. And He does it through His people, Israel. And so He's given the Jews tremendous talent and tremendous ability. This is why you see this tiny people, the Jewish people, influencing things so vastly out of proportion to their numbers in the population. So out of proportion in every generation, in every situation, all over the world. It's the Jewish brilliance and creativity is unbelievable. And it's not because it's not because the Jews are some sort of special master race. It's nonsense. We're all human beings. We're all flesh and blood. We're all human beings. But God intentionally gave the Jews this tremendous talent in order to make His point. That when He decides to do something, He's going to use this little people, the Jewish people, in order to teach the world that He is the ruler of the world. Through Israel's miraculous victories, through the fulfillment of biblical prophecy regarding Israel, God shows the world what life is really all about. But in this war, we see, again, spectacular things. There are only 7 million Jews. I see all these Israeli commentators. Oh, I hate when they go on and say, we only have 10 million people. Israel's a small country. We only have 10 million people. They don't have 10 million. They have 10 million people living in Israel, but only 7 million are Jews. The rest are Arab Muslims. Almost all the non-Jew, the overwhelming majority of non-Jews in Israel are Arab Muslims. They're enemies of Israel who live within Israel. There are only 7 million Jews in Israel. And they're up against 94 million Iranian Muslims. And look what they're doing to the Iranian Muslims. I mean, this isn't incredible? This isn't the ultimate David versus Goliath here? But the problem is that Israel waited too long and gave the Iranians 25 years to build an infrastructure and create a situation where it would be very, very hard to take out their program. The United States has 30,000-pound bunker busting bombs that might be able to destroy the Fordo nuclear site of the Iranians. Maybe the United States could do it. Israel doesn't have that type of those types of bombs. Israel doesn't even have the aircraft to carry a 30,000-pound bomb. Israel doesn't have aircraft that are capable of carrying bombs that huge. So we got a problem here because the United States does not want to get involved. And if the United States gets involved, that isn't even the best situation. We wanted a situation, at least we Kahanists, we wanted a situation where Israel wins the war by herself to show the world, again, to show the world that God's hand is in this. The United States wins, people are going to say, that's no big deal. Nobody's surprised that the United States, a great military superpower and a huge country like America, could defeat Iran. That won't surprise anybody. What Israel is doing, what little Israel is doing to Iran, does surprise people. Every time Israel really uses her brains to get out and get the job done, it shocks people how amazing the results are. The Mossad, their intelligence agency, is by far the best intelligence agency in the world. By far. Nobody comes close. Their pilots, the best pilots in the world. I mean, they are the best when they decide to fight back. The problem is they're insane. The problem is many of the Jews in Israel are insane. After 2,000 years of living in the Galut, after 2,000 years of not having a homeland, of being homeless, stateless, hated, a persecuted, despised minority, being burned and gassed and tortured and undergoing all the horrors that are unspeakable. For 2,000 years, the Jews went through this. And so, after all the pogroms and all the inquisitions and all the crusades and all the expulsions and the Holocaust itself, after all the Jews have been through, they're not normal anymore. They're not normal. There's something wrong with them. And so even when they have this tremendous talent to create the technology that is unbelievable, most of the most advanced American technology was created also by the majority of creators of American technology are also Jewish scientists. Even though the Jews are 1% of America's population, they're the majority of the creators of American technology. The Jews are the ones that created the atom bomb, the Manhattan Project. Almost all the scientists involved in the Manhattan Project were Jewish. Even again, the Jews were 1% of the population, and they were like 90% plus of the scientists who created the atom bomb so that the United States wouldn't be at a disadvantage. If the United States had not been the first to create the atom bomb, what would have happened if the Soviets had it and the United States didn't have it? The whole world Soviets would have been able to take over the whole world in a situation like that. It would have been a catastrophe. Or if the Japanese and the Germans had been able to create an atom bomb before the end of World War II, before the United States, the United States would have lost the war. Japan would have defeated the United States in the war. So it was very important to get that technology, and they did it with the Manhattan Project. Now, Israel now does nothing without the approval of Donald Trump in the United States. Before Donald Trump took office, they did nothing without the approval of Joe Biden. They would never act alone. If the United States didn't give approval, they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't make a single move without the United States. And that is terrible. That's a very bad policy. Israel needs to be independent. Israel needs to have an independent military, and Israel needs to have an independent economy. And with Jewish brains and God's help, they can produce it. They can do it. They can show the world too how Jews can do miraculous things. The Jews who win 6-day wars, The Jews who did the beepers. Remember the beepers? And do you remember the story about the beepers? That thousands of beepers go off simultaneously and blow the brains out of Islamic terrorists. Remember that? That was just a short while ago in the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. Who can do? I mean, these are things that the Hollywood creators couldn't create movies as amazing as this. But this is real life with Israel. With Israel, Israel really does these things. It's real life. Because because God wants them. When God wants them to win, that's what happens. When God doesn't want them to win, we have holocausts. It's God who's making the decisions here. That's the lesson that has to be learned here. And so Israel had to learn to become independent all these years. If they had done that, again, only we, the Kahanis, and Moshe Feiglin from the Zehut Party are the only ones who have been saying this all along. Israelis now are all, oh, they want the United States to get involved now to bomb the Iranian nuclear facility in Fordo. They all want the United States to get involved. We Kahanis never wanted the United States to get involved in the conflict. We wanted Israel to be independent and to act when she needs to act and not to give in to American pressure and other pressure, because American presidents told Israel, do not attack. George Bush and Barack Hussein Osama, the Muslim, he himself was a Muslim terrorist. Barack Hussein Osama and Donald Trump all were telling Israel, do not attack. Trump told Israel not to attack until the very end. He changed his mind at the very end because the Iranians were literally making a fool out of him in the so-called negotiations. They were dragging it along and making a fool out of him and ridiculing him and mocking him in front of the whole world. So finally he got fed up and he told Israel, okay. But before then, Donald Trump also was telling Israel, do not attack. He warned them not to attack. He said so openly. He said so publicly. He said publicly, I've told them not to attack while I'm trying to make a deal. He's going to try to make a deal, the art of the deal with an Islamic terrorist regime that is commanded according to their religion, according to the Islamic religion, to use taqiyya's deception against the infidels, against the non-Muslim infidels. They're commanded to lie, just as Muhammad lied in the Quran. They're commanded to do this. And he's going to make deals with this regime that has never kept their word in any agreement they've ever signed. Even the UN, which is very anti-Semitic and very anti-American, even the UN inspector said that they lied and cheated and haven't kept any part of their agreement, with the agreement that was signed with Barack Hussein Osama 10 years ago. They didn't keep any of that agreement. They violated everything and had secret places where they were building their nuclear material, and all in violation of the agreement. They never keep their word in any agreement they sign. It is insane to sign agreements with them. No agreement should be signed with them, ever. And so we've been saying Israel has to become independent militarily and economically. I'm not saying it's easy. But if Israel really was determined to do it, it is doable. And Israel doesn't have a choice. Look at the situation here. In 2028, the next presidential election, think about this. Next presidential election is 3 years off. We're going to have either the Democrats are going to win, God forbid. If the Democrats win, we'll have an anti-Semitic Democrat president, because the Democrat Party is a party of anti-Semitism. They're all Jew haters now. They're all against Israel. They're all Jew haters, all terrible for Israel. So the Democrats could win in the next election 3 years from now, very possible. Or the Republican candidate could win, but who is going to be the Republican candidate? J.D. Vance, who is the anti-Israel vice president under Trump. The anti-Israel vice president who's friends with the anti-Semite Tucker Carlson and with Joe Rogan and all these other anti-Semites who accuse Israel of committing genocide. He goes on their television programs and on their podcasts and says, I don't agree Israel's committing genocide, but it is a terrible thing when Palestinians are killed or hurt. We should feel the pain of Palestinians. This is the way he speaks. There are no Palestinians. That's a lie. There's never been a Palestine or Palestinian people. That's a lie. That's a fabrication. The Arabs themselves always said there's no such thing as a Palestinian people until 50 or 60 years ago. They invented this phony people as an excuse to destroy Israel. And when he said when he says he feels sorry for people who want to commit genocide against, it's the Jews who are the victims of genocide. That's like saying he goes on programs of people who accuse the Jews of committing the genocide. That's like saying the 6 million Jews were committing genocide against the German Nazis, blaming the 6 million Jews and saying the German Nazis were the victims in the Holocaust. I mean, that's the same thing. Except in this case, the Arab Nazis didn't succeed. The German Nazis were successful in murdering 6 million Jews. The Arab Nazis also want to destroy the Jewish people, but they because of God's intervention, they've been unable to succeed. Thank God, Baruch Hashem. But we're going to have either J.D. Vance, who is bad, who is anti-Israel, who will probably be the Republican nominee, or we're going to have the Democrats. So in 3 years, we're going to be faced with this dilemma very quickly. Israel, whether they like it or not, are going to be alone and under severe pressure to commit suicide. What are they going to do then? And there's no attempt even here to make Israel more independent. It's really a situation where we have leaders that are walking Israel right off the cliff, just insanity. And if not for God, Israel, what a miracle that Israel survives with leaders like this, with with nutty Jewish people that we have, and still Israel survives. It is such an incredible miracle, such an incredible. It's a part of history that you don't see replicated anywhere else. Nothing even comes close to this. We told you from the start that Israel has to do this. Weren't we right? We told you that Israel should do this at a time when it would have taken the Israeli Air Force an hour or two to destroy the whole program, just as Israel did in 1981 against the nuclear bomb-making program of Saddam Hussein in Iraq. Israeli Air Force went in one day, they wiped out the whole program in 1981 in Iraq. And the same thing happened in 2005 or 2006. Might be 2005, 2006, 2007. I have to check. But it happened in Syria. They had a nuclear program. The Israeli Air Force went in and wiped it out, destroyed it in one day. Israel could have done the same thing to this threat in Iran. But instead, they let this thing grow and fester until we're in a situation now where it could be too late for Israel to completely destroy the program, and then we're going to be in a lot of trouble here. God forbid. I hope it's not. I hope that they have some tricks up their sleeves. I hope that God gave them a last-minute chance to get out of this. Because with the Jews, you never know. God miraculously pulls them out of every situation, no matter how hopeless things seem. But when it comes to the Jews, they manage to survive, and all their enemies wind up being destroyed in the end. There's only one group of Jews in Israel that is actively working to do what really has to be done to save Israel from all of this, because Israel is going to come under tremendous pressure to create a Palestinian state, which would be suicide for Israel, to go back to pre-1967 borders, which would be suicide for Israel. And so we've been urging you to help us support the heroic Hilltop Youth. They're the one group that if Israel followed their example, we wouldn't be in this situation now. Imagine if people did what we urged them to do all these years. You wouldn't have buildings being blown up in Israel now by Iranian ballistic missiles. You wouldn't have had, as of the time we're doing this show, at least 24 Israelis have been killed. Hashem yikom damam, may God avenge their blood in this war. You wouldn't have had the tremendous economic consequences where Israel's whole economy has to be shut down, because that's what's happening. The Israeli economy is basically shut down when this war goes on. You wouldn't have had any of this. All of it could have been solved very quickly, very efficiently, and Israel would be safer, stronger, and better off. That's what could have happened if only we had had the support we need to make it happen. 25 years ago, 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, we were warning about this all along, and Netanyahu just made speeches and speeches and speeches and did nothing, because the Israeli leaders are a bluff. The people of Israel, the Israeli soldiers, are very brave. Israeli soldiers, Israeli pilots, the Israelis who are doing the intelligence operations here, they're very brave. They're a great people. But the leaders of Israel are garbage. Netanyahu and the other leaders of Israel are garbage. Okay? The people of Israel deserve better than this. They deserve leaders who are as good as they are. The Hilltop Youth. If we support them, they'll set the example. They are the best of the Jewish people. And so if you want to help Jewish heroes, and if you want to make sure that Israel is safe from creating a so-called Palestinian state and set the example so that Jews won't be in this type of danger, we're going to urge you to support the Hilltop Youth now, because you know, JTF's budget, 100% of JTF's budget goes to the Hilltop Youth. And so when you support us, you're supporting the Hilltop Youth. I've devoted my whole life for years now, to helping the Hilltop Youth. This is my whole life, a focus of my entire existence, because there is no issue more important. Here's how you support the heroic Hilltop Youth. You can go to if you want to do it online, you go to our Hebrew main page, which is hayamin.org. The page is in Hebrew, but there's a donate button in English on top. You click on the donate button in English on top, and you can easily and conveniently donate. You can either do recurring monthly donations or one-time donations or both. And yes, we urge people to put JTF in their will. Before you leave this world, do something good to make this a better world. Jews and righteous Gentiles, put JTF in your will, because then the money will go 100% to the Hilltop Youth. And you know, we don't pay any salaries here. This is the one organization where when you give your money, 100% of it is going straight to the cause that you want it to go to. We don't have salaries and offices and all these other things going on here. We don't have that here. If you want to make a donation online, you do it through the donate button on hayamin.org. If you don't want to do it through the internet, if you want to do it through the regular mail, you just make checks and money orders out to JTF, and you send it to JTF, P.O. Box 650327, Fresh Meadows, New York, 11365. Jews and righteous Gentiles should feel a tremendous sense of pride when they see the heroism and the brilliance and the ingenuity and the talent of Israeli pilots and Israeli intelligence and Israeli soldiers. Remember, it was only 80 years ago that this same people seemed like they were the people that could not fight, couldn't do anything to protect themselves during the Holocaust. They just went to the gas chambers and ovens, most of them without even fighting back. They were transformed from that people. That was the people of the Jews without Israel, without the land of Israel. That's what the Jews are like. The Jews in that situation are the complete opposite of the Jews in Israel. The Jews in the land of Israel are brave, are noble, have ingenuity and innovation that's just stunning, and win miraculous victories because God is on their side. Don't you want the Jews of the land of Israel to be the winners here? Don't you want the Jews who are the ultimate symbols of the defenders of the land of Israel, the Hilltop Youth, to win their battle? Someday, God willing, we'll have the ability to reach all the people of Israel with this message and convince the people of Israel to change their leadership and to put the idealistic, heroic, and great Jews in charge. When that day comes, it will bring redemption, not only to Israel and the Jewish people, but to the whole world. For JTF, until next week, this is Chaim Ben Pesach. Shalom.